Without further ado, we have Dan today, all the way from the Big Island. He's an investor, a team leader, one of the top luxury agents in the country, and he's going to be talking to us about circle prospecting and lots of other cool stuff. So let me stop sharing my screen. Hey, Dan, how you doing?
Hey,
Welcome.
good morning, everybody. Thanks for having me, Al. I appreciate it. Thanks to
Oh, we're
Elizabeth for
excited to
reaching out
have
to
you.
me. Yeah. Well, I want to get started and first give you a couple of things. Today, I'm going to try to move quickly, but what you're going to learn today is what I did when I left my job. I was a very successful rainmaker in Denver with a team of 8 and a market center owner. And I decided to give it all up, walk away, and move to Hawaii. And upon landing in Hawaii with no book of business, no sphere, no past clients, no nothing, I ended up doing $40 million in transactions in my first year. How did I do that? I'm going to tell you that in today's class. Also want to give you some background. I'm an East Coast guy. I'm originally from Syracuse, New York. I'm a New York Italian, and my mother felt necessary to make a pilgrimage to Florida, like every New York Italian. And I grew up in South Florida for my high school years. But then I went back to Syracuse and went to Syracuse University and graduated from there. So I have a huge fondness for the East Coast.
Hey,
Huge
Dan, by the
fondness.
way, me
Yeah.
too. I graduated from Syracuse as well. We
Wow,
got
that's
that in common.
amazing. Yeah, I'm probably older though.
I doubt it.
Um, so I love the East Coast. I love the people there. I love every time I'm back, I feel like I'm back with my people, so to speak. And so I'm excited to do this. The other thing I want to tell you is that I'm going to give you a little background on my journey, so you can have some context about how I got here. And then that's going to make sense about how I implemented this data mining system. And I'm going to show you a lot of things today with this share screen. But let me start back. My wife is originally from Kona, Hawaii, and she always wanted to move back. And we got married in 2000, and I told her we would move back in 2 years. And in 2019, we finally did move back. It just took a few years longer than I anticipated. And so what precipitated that was I was coming up on 50 years of age. I had a team of 8 in Denver. We were selling, 120 homes a year, 10 closings a month. And I noticed that I was starting to get sick. I was starting to get ill, and I was spending more time in doctor's appointments than I was in listing appointments. And finally, one doctor leveled with me and said, really, what you have is a symptom of your lifestyle. They basically said, anytime you want to take the phone out of your ear, get off a plane and really reduce your stress level, I think you'll get better. And so that kind of precipitated a conversation with my wife. At the time, I was an owner of the Denver Market Center, which was 600 agents. I was an owner of the San Diego Central Market Center, which was 150 agents. I had my license in Colorado, and I also had my license in Hawaii. And I was going what I called the triangle. I would sell a few homes in Colorado. I would fly out to San Diego. I would help my partners out in the San Diego office, and then I would fly to Hawaii, and I would stay at my Hawaii home, and I would sell a few homes in Hawaii. And I did that triangle for a number of years, and like I said, it just about killed me. And so my wife and I started saying, well, what would it look like if we radically downsized our life? I mean, what if we sold everything and completely divested ourselves of everything that we own? And so we made the decision to do that and move to the Hawaii house full time. And I sold my shares in the Denver office. I sold my shares in the San Diego office. I sold my house in Colorado. I had a house back in my hometown of Syracuse, New York. I sold that. And I practically divested myself of everything that I owned, and I moved to Hawaii. You're probably asking yourself, well, what did you do with your team in Denver? I went to my buyer's agent, who is my top buyer's agent, who had been with me for 5 years, and he had always said that he would be ready to take over the business. And so I said, okay, here's your opportunity. And I handed him the business. And I walked away and I said, good luck. Let me know how it goes. And I took off to Hawaii. And my plan when I got to Hawaii was nothing. I actually had no plan. The only thing that I was going to do was I was going to sleep for 6 months. That was the only thing on my priority list. And wasn't sure what I was going to do with my career, or if I was going to stay in real estate or whatever. And so I started just doing nothing for the first couple of months. And lo and behold, the doctors were right. Getting rid of all of that stress, all of those transactions, all of that flying, all of the phone in my ear, I started to get better. And that went great until we moved here in July of 2019. And then in November of 2019, my wife came to me and said, listen, you're way too young to be retired. You have fixed everything in this house. There's nothing more for you to work on. You are absolutely driving me crazy. You need to go do something. And I said, okay. So I was trying to figure out what I would do. And about that time, my business partners, Colette and Lisa, found me, as I say. They found me. They called me up and they said, hey, we heard that you moved to the Big Island. And I said, yes, who told you and how did you find me? And we got through that and they said, there is no Keller Williams office on the Big Island. And I said, yes, I'm aware of that. I know there's no Keller Williams office here. And they said, well, you're just who we've been waiting for. You've got the experience. Can you open the Keller Williams Big Island office? And initially I said, no, I can't do that again. I don't want to go through that again. And then my wife did something which I hate, which is she used logic on me. And she just said, listen, you're not doing anything. Why don't you give it a try? You know how to do this. And if you don't like it, you can go back into semi-retirement. And so in December of 2019, I called Lisa and Colette back and said, okay, I will open the Keller Williams office in Kona. And in January, I was the one Keller Williams agent here on the Big Island. And I started going out and recruiting people to come join me. And that was going well. I had about 8 people join me for the launch by mid-February. And you know what was coming, right? So mid-February, I'm having a conversation with Lisa and I said, so what do you think about this virus thing? Like, do you think this thing's going to be an issue? Are we going to have a problem? And had I only known, because in the second week of March, I signed the lease on the new office space. And in the third week of March, they closed the country. And I allowed myself to have a pity party at my desk for about 15 minutes before I pulled myself together. And so every time I'm in crisis, I always do the same thing. I've got the same method when I'm in crisis. And that is I pick up the phone and I start making as many phone calls as I can until I'm out of the crisis. That's my method. And it has served me well. And so I came up with this plan. I thought, the island is shut down. No one is doing anything. Everybody's home. The agents are a captive audience. So why don't I just start calling all of the agents who are stuck home? And why don't I tell them 3 things? A, who Keller Williams is. B, who I am. And 3, why don't I tell them a 3-step plan of how we're going to get through the pandemic? And so that was my method. I started calling agents all over the island and I told them those 3 things. And a funny thing, what they started to say to me on the other end was, hey, no one from my brokerage firm is calling me or talking to me about this stuff. And I said, well, maybe you're with the wrong brokerage firm. And they said, maybe I am. And they started joining Keller Williams. And so what I thought was going to be a problem ended up being an advantage. And by May of 2020, I had the whole office built out because the contractors were out of work and there was a supply of contractors that I could choose from to get the office finished done. In June, the governor opened the island back for businesses. And by the time I flung open the doors of the office, we had almost 50 agents recruited to Keller Williams. And so we were off and running. Once that was done, I got an executive assistant for the office. I got an assistant team leader. And my partner said to me in January of 2021, what do we need to do next? And I said, we need production, and we need a lot of it. And they said, well, where are we going to get that from? And I said, well, we need somebody on the roster who's done a lot of luxury and a lot of high-end listings and can bring in a lot of listings. And they said, well, who is that? And I said, that's me. I'm it. And they said, well, why don't we do this? Why don't we have the assistant team leader kind of take over day-to-day operations, and why don't you go back into production? And I wasn't really planning on going back into production, but I said, okay. And so in January of 21, I go back into production. I get my MAPS coach, and I hope you guys have a MAPS coach. That's another conversation we can have, which I think is vitally important. But I get my MAPS coach, and her name is Bridget, and I get on the line with Bridget, and I say, Bridget, I'm going back into production. What do we do? And she says, well, you know what Gary says, your database is your business. And I said, yep. And she says, tell me how many people you know in Hawaii that are in your database. And I said, okay, that's easy. That's 12. And she says, you have 12 people in your database? I said, yes, that's correct. She goes, we're in big trouble. She said, we gotta do something. And I said, okay, what do you want to do? And she said, well, the best thing is for you to get out and meet people. Start shaking hands and kissing babies. I said, okay, what do you think how do we do that? She said, well, what do you like to do? And I said, well, I like to golf. And she said, well, can you join a golf league? And so I investigate, I join a golf league. I start meeting some guys. We start golfing every Friday. I start making contacts. She said, what else do you like to do? I said, well, I like to play pickleball. And she says, well, can you find a pickleball league? And so I find a pickleball league, and I start playing on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays in the morning. And I'm meeting people and shaking hands and adding people to my database in my phone. And she says, what else do you like to do? I said, well, I always wanted to learn how to paddle, paddling out here, canoe paddling. In the East Coast, they call it crew. Out here, it's paddling. And you're in a canoe, an outrigger canoe with a bunch of guys on the ocean. And I said, she goes, can you join a canoe club? And so I joined a canoe club, and Monday mornings I'm paddling, and the Hawaiians think it's hysterical because there's this white haole guy from New York who's in the canoe trying to paddle, and he's in the water more than he's in the canoe. And so I'm meeting people, I'm adding people to the database, but it's going really, really slow. And I said to Gretchen, I said, listen, at this pace, we're not gonna meet our goals. We need 200 people or more in this database. And then she asked me this critical question, which is the heart of what we're talking about today. She says, where do you want to plant your flag? And I thought, okay, that's a great question. Where do I want to plant my flag? Where do I want to generate and do all of my business? And I said, I've actually thought about this, and I want to do all of my business in the 6 resorts on the west side of the island. There's 6 very high-end resorts. And she says, well, great, I want you to study everything you can about those resorts. And I said, great, that's what I'm going to do. She said, don't do anything for 30 days, but study those resorts. And so I start looking through the MLS. I'm looking at all the resorts, everything that's sold, what's in there. I start driving the resorts. I'm looking at what's built, what's condo, what's single family, what's been remodeled. I'm looking at all the subdivisions. I'm looking at the different architecture. I'm looking at the views. I'm looking at everything in the product. And then it hits me. What I need to know most is who lives in that house. That's what I need to know most. And so I remember Gary back in 2018 saying big data was the 4th industrial revolution. And I said, what if I could get the data on everyone that lives in these 6 resorts? And so I start researching that, and I find out that in the 6 resorts, there's 3,000 homes. Of the 3,000 homes, 97% of them are second homes. That means nobody lives there. These people come, and they come to their house for a week or 2 weeks at Christmas, and they come for another week or 2 weeks in June. And that's it. Other than that, the house is empty. It's either a short-term vacation rental or it's just a second home that's empty. And so I start thinking, well, a lot of my lead generation techniques, a lot of the things that I do for lead gen that I did back in Denver aren't going to work here. I can't go walk that neighborhood and knock doors. Nobody lives there. I can't hold an event in that neighborhood. Nobody lives there. I can't leave door hangers. I can't leave flyers. Nobody lives there. And so what am I going to do? And it came back to, I need to find out who lives in that house. But more importantly, I need to find out who lives in that house and what their address is on the mainland. I need to figure out where they live on the mainland. And so the other thing that I realized is that 90%, 95% of all of the wealth on this island is in those 6 resorts. So armed with this knowledge, I decide that I'm going to go on this quest to figure out who lives in each one of those 3,000 homes. And so the first place I started was where? Who knows? You can shout it out. Where did I start?
Tax
Anybody?
records?
Where?
Tax records?
Tax records. Yep, pretty close. I called the title company. I called my title rep and I said, hey, can you get me the public records for, we'll just take the first subdivision or the first resort. The first resort was Mauna Kea. Can you get me all of the public records for everyone who lives in Mauna Kea? And they said, oh yeah, sure. And so like 15, 20 minutes later, they send me an Excel sheet and it has first name, last name. It tells me their address where they live in the mainland. And then it tells me the subject property's address. That's perfect. Banzai, winner, right? That's exactly what I was looking for. But then I thought, well, that'll be okay if I were doing direct mail and I was reaching out to them. But what I want to do is I need something faster. I need something more immediate. Like, how do I get their phone number and their email? Now, all of us at one point have tried to research somebody through the white pages to see if we could get a phone number and email, and it was usually wrong and couldn't find them and it didn't work. And so I needed to come up with a better system because I needed not only their phone number, but I needed their mobile number. And I didn't need an email address that was 10 years old that bounced back. I needed their real email address, the one that was working now. And so I go about developing this system of data mining people one by one, record by record, to get their real email and their real phone number. And after I get the system down, I start putting it together so we can do it in mass, so we can data mine all 3,000 people. And the primary way that I do it is through virtual assistants. How many of you have a virtual assistant? Amen. Greatest thing ever. I was an early adopter of virtual assistants. It was back in 2000, I think 2008 or 2009. I was on the beach on vacation reading Tim Ferriss's book about the 4-hour work week. And in it, he starts talking about this thing called virtual assistants, which nobody had heard about. And I get back to Denver and I get in front of a computer and I Google virtual assistants. And at the time, I think there was like one company that was offering virtual assistants. And so I get on this company and I follow the instructions. It says post an ad, and I don't really know what I'm doing. And so I post an ad for what I'm looking for. And sure enough, about 50 or 60 people from all over the world, Bangladesh, Ethiopia, Pakistan, they all just start, saying, well, I'm your guy. And they're applying for the job. And I had absolutely no idea how to figure out who to hire. I just literally took a dart and threw it at the board, and it landed on this guy. His name was Raghu, and he was in Mumbai, India. Raghu like the pizza sauce. And I said, well, he looks good. I guess we'll give it a shot. And so I hire Raghu. Raghu says to me right off the bat, Mr. Dunn. He always called me Mr. Dunn. Mr. Dunn, I don't know anything about real estate. Okay, no problem. That makes 2 of us. I just started in the business. I don't know anything about real estate either. And so I said, well, we'll learn it together. And so fast forward to today, 16 years later, Raghu is still with me. And this guy is one of the smartest guys ever in real estate. He knows more about real estate than most of us in the room. And if he ever came to the United States and decided to sell, he'd kill us. He's amazing what he and I have learned together over the 16 years. And not only does Raghu work for me at this point, but his sister Anjali works for me. His mother works for me. His wife Mercy works for me. They all work for me. And they were incredibly affordable. They started out at $3 an hour. Raghu's about $10 an hour now. But they're loyal and they're fantastic at what they do. And so they help me run this data mining system. The reason why I tell you that is because I'm going to show you the system now. And you're going to say to yourself, Dan, how would I possibly have time to do that? And the answer is you are not going to have time to do that. Your virtual assistant is going to do it. So let me do a share here. All right, everybody can see this now. This is an Excel sheet that came from the title company. Now let's look at the first entry here. Ingvar and Claudia Peterson, okay? They live in Tacoma, Washington. But look at the top of the sheet here. This is the public records for Mauna Kea Fairways South. Again, this is where your research comes in. There's a Mauna Kea Fairways North. There's a Mauna Kea Fairways South. These homes were built in the late 90s and the early 2000s. Some of them have been updated, some of them not. The average about 4,500 square feet. They're mostly 4 bedrooms. They have a good ocean view in most cases. This is the stuff that you've got to know about, right? And then you'll see over here, it says Mauna Kea Fairway South. And then there's another column that's not in this sheet at the moment, but it tells you exactly what their subject property is. The subject property in this case is not that important for me. What's important for me is this mailing address right here, this 401 Broadway Street, because that's where I have to data mine them. I have to find them in Tacoma in order to get their phone number and email address, okay? So what's the first step I do to find Ingvar and Claudia? I'm gonna do a new share, hang on. Okay, so this is a website called neighborwho.com. Now there's a bunch of different websites that you can use to search people, but in this case, I use Neighborwho. You can use Ben Verified, you can use Spokeo, you can use Neighborwho. Now, when I joined Neighborwho, they had a program where you could pay $22 a month for unlimited search records. They've since gotten away from that. Now it's a pay by record type of deal. I think you get like 50 records for $40 or something like that. So it's changed. But what I did here is I signed up at Neighborwho, and I came in here, and there's a bunch of different ways. The most accurate way to search for somebody is to click property here and put in the property address. That will probably pull them up every time, the right time. In other words, that address on Broadway Street in Tacoma. But let's just go people, because let's just say that's all you had. And if I put in Ingvar, and I put in the last name, Peterson, and as much information as you can put in here will be helpful because it will help you drill down the person. So I know he's in Tacoma, and I know he's in Washington. And if I hit search, here's what I get. So see this one here with all these results, relatives, locations, and so forth? That's of the 2 Ingvars. This one that has no information probably doesn't have any information when you click report, but this one does. And so click Ingvar. And this is the beauty part of this when this report pops up. Come on. What it's going to show you when Ingvar comes up is it's going to show you all of his email addresses, all of his phone numbers, and all of his, let's see, here it is. So right here, phone numbers, he's got 9 of them. Email addresses, he's got 14. He has no social media profiles. About half of the people you'll look up will have social media profiles. You'll get their Facebook, their Twitter, blah, blah, blah. Right phone number. Are you just going to call all 9 and say, hey, is this Ingvar? No, that's probably not going to work. So, you know, it tells you that this is a top number match, and that's a close match. And that's okay. This one they say is higher confidence, but you're still not sure, and you still don't want the wrong information. Same thing with email addresses. Click email addresses. Here's a whole bunch of email addresses, right? So how did Raghu know who to put in? So let's go into my CRM. Who uses command? Anybody? What's the best CRM? Anybody know?
The one you use?
The one you use, amen, brother. That's right. I don't care what CRM you use. They all have pluses and minuses. It's only about the one that you use. And so if I go here and I go into my people and I type in Peterson, there's Ingvar and Johan Peterson. What did Raghu, when Raghu built this contact in command for me, what did he use for contact information? So see this 206 number? He got it from this list of 9 phone numbers. But how do we know that this 206412 is actually Ingvar's number? Okay, here lies the second secret to data mining people. Ready? Everybody's with me so far? Okay. So we're going to take this 206 number that Raghu put in here, and we're going to find out if this is really Ingvar's number. And so we go to a website called textmagic.com. We have a chance for you to write that down. When you go to textmagic.com and you sign up, it's a pay-per-use basis. And so every time you look up someone's phone number, or you look up someone's email address, you pay 4 cents. It's 4 cents a lookup. And so what they do is they have you open up an account and they put $50 in the account, and then you start whittling it away 4 cents at a time. But see this tab over here on the left-hand side that says services? Go right here and click carrier lookup. That means we're looking up a phone number. See where it says 4 cents per lookup? Let me drop Ingvar's number in here. Right, that we got. So now let's find out if this is in fact Ingvar. Let's click check carrier. Okay, so here are the 2 key pieces of information you need. This one, this green button up here, where it says valid, that's gold. That's the key. That's his real number, because this could come back and say invalid. It could come back as saying unknown. It could come back as saying insufficient. If it comes back anything other than valid, it's not the number. Look over here where it says phone type, where it says mobile. If this said landline, do we want it? No, we don't want it. We can't send text messages to a landline. We can't market to a landline. Nobody answers their landline. We're not interested in the landline. We only want mobile. So it's valid and it's mobile. Bingo. We got the right phone number for Ingvar. We are in. Let's go back to the record. So Raghu pulled this Yahoo address from something he saw on Neighborhua. Of the list of 13 email addresses, Raghu pulled this Yahoo address. And so let's copy this and let's go back to TextMagic. Now we were on carrier lookup. Now we're going to go to email lookup. And we'll take mine out of there. And again, 4 cents to look up the email. So we're going to paste that in there and we're going to click check email. Did I not copy that right? Hold on. Ingvar.
You might have a space. Go in front of the I.
How smart are you?
It happened to me. That's how I knew.
But look at this. This is perfect. Valid and deliverable. This could say invalid. It could say no longer in service. This deliverable, there's a button that frequently comes back that says filtered. You know what that means? That means he's got a filtering software on his email and anything you send him is going to get shot straight to his spam. But since this says I have 2 greens and it says valid and deliverable, boom, we are in. We have his real phone number and his real email address. So now let's go over here. Let's see what he did. So Raghu filled all this out. And then if you go down here, he gave me some alternate email addresses that they in fact use and that are valid. And then he gave me some alternate phone numbers that they use and are valid, right? And then he put in the home address in Tacoma, and then he put in the vacation address here on the island. So I can see where his house is in Mauna Kea Fairway South. And then he found a Facebook link, right? So now you've got all of the information you need. And what Raghu did, painstakingly is he went through, because after we got the process dialed in, I went through and got the Excel sheets on all 3,000 homes. And I said to Raghu, I want you to build me a database, one person at a time. I don't want you to mass upload anything. I don't want to bulk upload because stuff doesn't get put in the right slot. Stuff doesn't get transferred properly. I want you to go in and hand type one record at a time so it's done right the first time with no errors. And that's what he did. He created me a database of 3,000 residents on the west side of the island in the 6 resorts. And now, armed with this information, what do you do? What do you do with it?
Call, text, email.
That's right. You market to them. You start marketing to them, right? You call, text, and email. And as Jason would say, of course, in a TCPA compliant way, right? So that's what I started doing. I started marketing to the 3,000 people after we had built the database. And what the question is, and this is actually another class, is what is it that you market to them? What do you tell them? Well, there's really 4 different ways to reach out and touch them. The first way that I would reach out and touch Ingvar and Johan is, Ingvar and Claudia, I should say, is if I had just listed something in the neighborhood. So we're all familiar with just listed cards, but I would put a different spin on it. I would create a just listed email. I would create a just listed HTML email, and I would put together a smart plan. And how many people use smart plans? Should be everybody. God's gift to real estate agents. So I would put together a smart plan, and the smart plan might include an HTML email telling Ingvar and Claudia that we've got a new home on the market in their neighborhood, and they can pick their neighbor. And then it might wait 5 or 7 days, and then maybe I'll send them a text message. Well, why wouldn't I? I have their mobile phone number, and I'll send them a text message. And then I might wait another 5 days, and I might change it up. Instead of sending an HTML postcard, I might send them a hand-typed email that says that I've just listed this house. And then I might wait another 5 days, and I might not send them a final text message. Now, out of all of the ways of communication, what is the single best way to get somebody to respond?
Phone call.
Phone call, you said? What else?
Text.
Text. Correct. Ding, ding, ding. Right answer. 100%. You want somebody to respond back to you? You text them. Right? And if you had to put it in order, it would be text, phone call, and email dead last. Chances are they don't respond to a lot of emails, but they will respond to a text. How do I know this? Well, you see the background behind my head? That's not a fictitious virtual that I bought. That's an actual house I sold. I sold it in the Montalani Resort for $18 million, cash, full price. And so that is a house on what we call Billionaires Row. There are 10 homes on Billionaires Row in Paoa Beach. It's a very unique neighborhood. And the reason why it's unique is because if you've ever been to the Big Island, you know we have a very rocky coast full of lava, and there's not a lot of beaches. But in this particular case, the 10 homes in Paoa Beach, all back to a beach, or to beach access. So you literally walk from the grass into the beach, into the water. Very, very rare. And so when I sold that house for full price, cash, what was the first thing I wanted to do? Who knows?
Tell everyone about it.
I wanted to tell everybody about it. In fact, I wanted to tell the other 9 owners, the other 9 billionaires on Billionaires Row that I sold it. Guess what? I could. You know why I could? Because I had data mined Paoa Beach, and I had the other 9 billionaires in my database. And so I started with this text message. Hi, this is Dan Polimino from the Hawaii team, KW Big Island. I don't know if you noticed, but I sold the Gupta house last week for $18 million full price cash. I had other buyers that were interested that missed out on the house. By any chance, would you consider talking with me for a few minutes about potentially selling your house to another buyer. That was my text message. Out of the 9 billionaires that I sent that text message to, how many responded?
All 9.
4.
Who said all 9? You're the winner. They get a prize. All 9 responded. All 9 answered the text message. It wasn't their wife. It wasn't their assistant. It wasn't their attorney. It was them. And here's the things they said. Hey, Dan, saw you sold the Gupta house. Great job. Way to bring up the property values. Hey, Dan, saw you sold the Gupta house. Great job. Hey, Dan, I am never, ever leaving this house. Thanks anyway. Hey, Dan, I'm going to die in this house. Hey, Dan, my house is, I don't know what he said, irreplaceable. And those were the comments. And so if 9 billionaires took the time to respond back to me on text, how many will respond back to you on text? This is just a sample of what you can do with this data. And so I've got 3,000 of their names and email addresses. I marketed to them, and in the first year, we did $40 million in sales. No sphere, no past clients, no book of business, no nothing. It was 100% cold lead generation. And there's other things you can do. You can tell them about something you just sold. And if you do tell them about something you just sold, trumpet that. Tell them something terrific you did in that sale. The other thing you can do is you can tell them that you have a buyer and that you've seen everything already in the MLS, and but you really do have to have a buyer. And you would want to know if they would consider talking to you about selling their house to your buyer. And then the fourth thing that you can do is you can make them a mofer. Make them some type of offer for immediate response. And I send these people, so Ingvar and these people, they probably get 4 contacts from me every month. And one of them is always me making them some type of offer. That's the way you market to a database and get business out of here. By the way, is this an excellent way to pick up off-market listings? Fabulous way to pick up off-market listings. I can't tell you how many times I double-ended it using this database. I had the buyer, they weren't on the market, they considered selling to me, I double-ended it because I had the database. How about when I go into a listing presentation? When I go into a listing presentation and I'm meeting with somebody who lives in one of those 6 resorts, you know what's the first thing out of my mouth? I have the list of everyone that lives in the six resorts here on this island. I have their email addresses, I have their phone numbers, I have their social profiles, and I can reach out to them to tell them about the sale of your house with a click of the mouse. Does that get me some listings? You bet it does. So I've got a lot more to share, but I'm going to stop right there. I want to get some quick questions, and then I'm going to tell you how we can potentially help.
I know Daniel and I think Baruch had the same question. Do either of you guys want to unmute and ask your question?
Sure. Dan, the question was just like when you were showing on the on Neighborhood, I think it was, how you pick up on Text Magic and you're confirming the number. How do you know that it actually is, even though it's working and it's a verified number, how do you know it's actually that person?
Yeah, good question. So it won't come back as valid and deliverable if the phone number doesn't match the name. So again, if you wanted to test it, you could call it. But so far, I've had tremendous luck, and I have not found a scenario in which it's not the right person. Now, one of the things I want to tell you is that I taught this class and have been teaching this class. Last year, I started in San Diego, and I taught this class all the way up the coast to Seattle. I was on the road for 2 weeks at Keller Williams offices. Probably got in front of, I would say 900 agents and taught them this. Of the 900 agents, I think maybe a dozen or so are actually doing it. And the question is, well, why? Why wouldn't they do it? And the answer always comes back to the same thing, which is, I don't have time, I don't have the resources, I don't have blah, fill in the blank. And so a year ago, last March, my business partner, Lisa, and I, we opened a company. We started a company called Golden Button. And we basically figured that I could spend the rest of my life teaching this to agents and they probably still weren't going to do it. So let's just do it for them. So we started Golden Button and now we do it for you. So if that's an option, you're certainly welcome to do the system and do it on your own. And I hope you do. And I hope it works and you make a lot of money. But if you want us to do the data mining for you, we can. And so I'm going to share this for you. Hang on.
So Dan, did you figure out a way to do this with technology, or when you use Golden Button, are we really using Raghu and his family?
I figured out how to do it. We are still doing it, Al, entry by entry. And now I have a lot more virtual assistants. I've got a few in Mumbai, I've got a few in Pakistan, and I have a lot in the Philippines. And we are literally data mining thousands of records for real estate agents all over the country. So the first thing I'm going to share with you is this. Can you see both QR codes or just one QR code?
I just
Okay.
see one.
So, all right, so scan that with your phone. And when you do, that is my Instacard. And so you should get a picture of me. And then below that picture of me, it'll say add to contacts. Click add to contacts. That'll open up your contacts. Scroll down and click create a new contact and click save or done. And then you'll have me in your phone to reach out to me if you want to talk. Here's the other thing I'm going to share with you. Okay, you see this QR code? Scan that one. And that basically just alerts me if you are interested in finding more out about Golden Button. If you are, just enter the information on the Google Sheet, and then we'll reach out to you and we can talk to you about potentially helping you with Golden Button. Make sense?
Yeah.
All right.
That's great.
Now, finally,
I was thinking that. I'm glad you said that, you have this kind of product or solution. I was saying this is great, but how many people are going to leave here and remember the website and do this, step by step. And
Yeah.
so it's
Yeah.
cool you took the guesswork out of it.
Took the guesswork out of it. And we can process we're about to make a big change because we're about to get into more mass, but we can probably process 5,000 contacts in about 3 weeks. And we'll do one of two things. We'll either put those contacts in an Excel sheet for you, and then you can do whatever you want with that Excel sheet. Or if you want to give us your login credentials into your CRM, we will upload each one of the contacts one by one. And so there are clients that literally just wake up in the morning and their CRM is filled with new data, and all they have to do is market to it.
That's great. Do you have a system where you share all those different touches that you use as well, or no?
Yeah, it's a whole nother class. I got scripts for text messages. I got scripts for emails. I got mofers that I share. Yeah, it's just there's a lot of ways to generate and get business off of it.
Can we have you back when you're free again to talk about that?
Yeah, 100%. Happy to do it. And I don't, as Al knows, I don't.
QR code again.
What's that?
Can you put up the second QR code again?
I will do that. Hang on. As Al knows, I don't charge anything for this. The only thing I would ask is that if you have a client that's thinking about Hawaii, that you would think of me on the Big Island and send them your way. My main feeder cities are San Diego, Los Angeles, the Bay Area, and Seattle. I spend a lot of time in those 4 cities working with agents, helping them build their business, because the majority of my clients come from, but the people in New York that work on Wall Street are, big money developers, corporate titans and so forth. They do have a fair amount of homes out here on the Big Island, and love working with them as well.
Sounds great. We will definitely send all of our billionaires to you for sure.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. So,
All right. Anyone else? This is really a great class of feedback in the chat is amazing. I know I got a lot out of it. Anybody, before we wrap it up, I want to be respectful of Dan's time. We're a little bit over. Anybody have a last question for Dan before we wrap it up?
Well, I'm seeing a lot in the chat that they want the next class, so you'll have to arrange.
Yeah,
okay,
we'll reach
do
out
the
to you
next
for
class.
the schedule.
Yeah, like you're going to be amazed. You cannot imagine how much business I got off of the old pumpkin pie. Many of us at Keller Williams know about the pumpkin pie giveaway at Thanksgiving. I put an entirely different twist on it and did it like no one ever has done it before and made a boatload of cash. So you're going to want to know that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we will reach out and see when we can bring you back. But thanks so much for today. The feedback again is excellent. We all learned a lot. And yeah, this was amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Dan,
thanks,
and
Al.
thanks to everyone else.
Thanks, everybody. Good seeing you.
Thank
Have
you.
a great day, everyone.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye-bye.